In today's video, I'm gonna have my friend ask me questions about real estate, personal stuff, money, anything that he wants, and he's a new real estate investor. He's been in the business about 6 months now, and I figured his perspective would be exactly what you are as the viewer, and so I thought this would be a great video for you to watch because he's gonna be asking questions from your perspective. Also, if you are new to the channel, my name is Justin Yaron. I'm a real estate investor and entrepreneur here in Las Vegas. I've made hundreds of videos teaching people about real estate, and the goal of this channel is to help you grow your money and mindset. Also, if you want to see more personal content, follow me on Instagram at Justin Yaron. So we have a special guest today. His name is Steven Pham. He's a 22-year-old real estate investor out of Colorado, and he's just gonna be asking me questions about anything, real estate, money, personal development, anything like that, and you guys will enjoy. Throw me a first question.
I guess my first question for you would be, throughout your personal and work life, how do you just stay motivated? I know it's, for me personally, I get a lot of distractions and it seems to be like overwhelming about how much moving parts there are. So how do you, in your personal life and your work life, just keep staying motivated and being able to balance everything throughout everything?
As far as the motivation goes, like I'm not a huge, believer of motivation, because I feel like if you want something, you're just gonna do it and you're gonna do all the work that's necessary, whether it's hard, whether it's easy. But I guess in a way that I stay motivated is I always kind of keep in mind like what my top goals are and why I have those goals. And it's always top of mind. Like those are things I review every single day, like my goals. And whenever I see those things and I see like the activities that I need to do to achieve those goals, it's like, no, I'm gonna do it. Like whether I'm feeling bad, feeling gross, feeling sick, it's like I just do it. Because most of the days I'm not motivated, believe it or not. To make these YouTube videos, I'm not motivated most of the times I record. Most of the times it's like I finish my morning routine and I'm dead tired. I'm like, no, like we gotta start scripting, we gotta film, and we gotta put out this content to help these people. So that's my part for the motivation. Then as far as balancing everything, man, this is something that I've struggled with for a long time until recently. I'm starting to improve, but it's the productivity when it comes to that and balance. It comes to saying no to a lot of things. Like when I'm doing something before in the past, if I'm recording content or recording videos, I would record stuff and then my phone would be on and I'd get calls and I'd start to answer the calls because I had to deal with things where I thought I had to deal with them right away. But then as I've learned is like, you can do things at your own pace whenever you want.
Yeah.
And so now like whenever I'm doing something, a task or an activity, I'm all in on it. Yeah. Like when it's content, my phone is on do not disturb, it's in a different room or something. I'm not distracted and like I can go all in. And then when it's time to respond to messages or emails, then I go all in on that and nothing else distracts me.
Yeah. A second part to that question would be, do you have like an organization thing that you do every day or a to-do list that keeps you set for this? Or is it just something that you plan day to day? Because some days might be busier than other days. And then some days you might feel like you can do a little more than other days, or is it just all planned out on your calendar and then you just add things as you go on throughout your normal day?
Okay, no, that's a great question, because for me, it's not necessarily a list. I guess it's kind of like I have a tracker that I have for my own personal habits and business. Like I keep key performance indicators for my own life, whether it's my workouts or something like that. As far as the list goes, it's really one thing. I think everyone needs to have or should have one thing that they're most focused on at any given time. For me right now, it's my content creation. You know, after my morning routine, in the morning I do my stuff, my workouts, whatever. But then after that, like the content is the first thing that I'm gonna be working on. Whether it's scripting, whether it's making actual filming videos, whether it's creating new systems for my content, hiring people, like that's the main focus. And I book off 4 hours a day for that, like at least.
Yeah.
And if I don't get that done, I feel like I had not a productive day. Like even if I got a deal closed and I made $30,000, it's like, no, that was a bad day because I didn't get my one thing done. And so once I do that, and then everything else is tracked with like Podio, honestly, because Podio tracks most of my actual activities as far as what I need to do for the real estate business, what I need to do for content, what I need to do personally. But the main thing is like on the calendar, I have to look at my time and see, okay, what's my biggest focus? Make sure I allot enough time for that, which is at least 4 hours a day, and then go all in on it. So that's how I stay zoned in. It's not like a bunch of little tasks. It's just one thing. And everyone has their thing, or I think they should.
Yeah.
Do you have one thing for you?
The one thing I always try to get done throughout my day is try to push at least one property to the next step or get it close. Okay. So I have a lot of moving pieces and there are a lot of houses in the beginning stages or near the end. My main goal throughout the day is just to get one of those houses or one of those deals pushed forward a little more. So then the next day I can either focus on that other one that I missed or I can come back to it and push it even further than it was the day before.
Got it. Got it. No, that's awesome, man.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
I try. Do you use a certain spreadsheet or like organization tool to keep all your real estate stuff in? Like, I know Ryan has his own that's built where you just put all the houses and they have different numbers and you can track who does what. But do you have your own system to use that? Because for me, that was the biggest key, was trying to build my own system that I felt comfortable with to manage all the properties that I was going through.
Got it. I mean, for me, there's two things that I do to keep organized with real estate stuff specifically. One is I use Podio. So Podio is like a CRM system that you can use to like manage a wholesale business or any business really. So I use Podio to track like my task and like things like that. But I also use Excel. It's just like a Google Sheet that it's shared in a drive where I track all my properties that are active, listed, like whatever stage it's in, whether it's in purchase escrow, whether I actually bought it already, whether it's a rehabbing, whether it's listed. Like we have an Excel sheet that tracks all of it so that at any point in time, I could look at the sheet and go, what's this property doing? Like, where is it at? And so then I can see, okay, here's where it's at. Whoever's in charge of that, whether it's a project manager or someone else, like if it's in the rehab, they can look at it too and say, okay, like this is where we're at too. So I use both of those two things.
Do you use any other people, or do you find other people to help you close on stuff or help you kind of push your properties, or is it all just you?
When it comes to like closing deals, whether it's from direct marketing, for my own direct marketing, or whether it's from social media, or it's from wholesalers or MLS, for the most part, I'm involved some way, somehow. So I'm at the stage where whether it's an MLS deal where my MLS acquisitions agent is making offers, once there's like a deal, like an actual good lead where the seller's ready to sell at our price, she'll come back to me and say, hey, like, ready to sell, like, what do you want to do? Same thing happens when it comes to the direct to seller leads, like all my cold calling. Whenever there's a potential deal that's an actual lead, my outside sales agent who's doing the follow-ups and all the calls to those sellers, actually no, that one, he takes charge of that. So like he closes it himself and then he comes back to me and say, hey, we got it. And so he takes care of that. For social media stuff, I usually handle that stuff because people are coming to me and saying, hey, I got a deal. Can you help me with this? And so because it's kind of more relationship based, I'll handle those. But that's kind of how it works, like when it comes to actually acquiring deals. I'm involved in most of the things.
Are you training your agents to help you close? Or if they, like, let's say they mess up and they kind of ruin a closing for you and you lose a deal, is that the end of the line, or do you go back and train them through what they did wrong? Is there certain like lines that are drawn out between the people you work with where they can be beneficial to you, or where you just have to cut it loose and go your own way?
Because let's see, so the only person who is, I guess, qualified in my team to close, it's the guy who's handling my cold calling leads. He's my outside sales agent and he has permission to close. Like I've trained him in the sense of like giving him sales training to hone his skills, but he already had the skills. He kind of does his own thing. And so I've done that. And then if something goes wrong or, goes bad, then he can come back to me and say, hey, here's what happened. And if I see something that I would have done differently, that's when maybe potential coaching could come in where I can say, hey, like I would have done this, maybe let's try that. Let's see what happens if you say that to them. But usually it's not me stepping back in. It's usually me just like telling him, hey, try this. Like, I don't think this is a dead deal yet.
Yeah, because I work with a ton of agents. I have multiple agents. The biggest thing I find that's tough with them is they all think they know what to do. And some of them will take it too far and they won't take any advice back. And, you just kind of have to cut it dead and let them do them. And then you just go out and look for somebody who's more coachable, I guess, in the sense of to help you out or help us out and that sort of thing. I'm just not good at firing people is what you would call it. Like, firing people, I'm a nice guy. I tend not to try to fire people, but when it comes down to it, I don't know where the line is drawn to where it's bad for business and where it doesn't help me anymore at that point.
No, that makes sense. It's hard, it's hard to fire, but once you realize that, like, if you have someone on your team that's holding you back, and you have to give them an honest chance first, like you have to give them the proper training to succeed, the proper tools to succeed, because if you don't and they do bad, it's like, well, you didn't put them in the right position to succeed. It's like, I mean, you play basketball, it's like being a point guard and giving someone who can't shoot the ball at the 3-point line. It's like, you're not putting them in a position to succeed.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so same thing applies to business, but that's a great question.
Okay, another question for you is, when do you think is the right time to hire your first, to hire somebody? Like when you're first starting out, should it be within the first 6 months? Is there a timeline, or do you just believe it's when you're ready to hire is when you should hire?
I don't think there's any strict guideline as far as, hey, you should hire at this moment. But I will say, I don't think you'll ever feel ready to hire, at least in the beginning. I think in the beginning, you're gonna feel uncomfortable with it. And when it comes to hiring, I think it's the point where either you just are horrible at something and you don't have the time to commit to something. Like maybe you have a full-time job and you're trying to do direct to seller marketing, and you don't actually have the time, if you want to spend time with your family, to actually follow up with all these sellers. And so maybe at that point you're like, hey, I need to hire because I want to still have my family time. I still want to keep my full-time job, and I need someone to actually follow up with these sellers. That could be a point where it's like, hey, like we need to hire someone. Another point could be if like you've done something for a certain time, like maybe you start cold calling for a while and maybe you get a deal and you're starting to feel comfortable with your system. That could be a great point to hire maybe a cold caller, because it's generally a lower dollar per hour task. And once you have the system down for yourself of what works for you, then you can train that system to the cold caller. Like, here's what we say when we cold call, here's the script we use, here's why we use it, and you have the experience yourself to teach it. But if you don't have the experience yourself to teach it, or if you don't have someone else to teach it to them, then when you hire someone, it's kind of like hiring someone blindly. You have no idea if they're going to succeed or not because there's no system for them to hop on.
Yeah, definitely. So when you were first starting out and you would run into a problem that you didn't know how to answer and you couldn't get anyone to answer that question, what would you do? Would you push it forward, or would you stay stagnant until you got the answer about how to fix it?
It's interesting that you asked me this, because this is something I'm not proud of. So when I first started, when I ran into that first wall or that big roadblock where I didn't know how to do something, couldn't figure it out, I would stop. And I wouldn't try to figure it out because it was so hard, so uncomfortable. And I'm not proud of that, but that's how I started. And as soon as I as I grew, I started to be more comfortable with just asking for help. And so now anytime I run into a roadblock, I'm immediately thinking of like, who knows how to do this? Like if someone knows cold calling better than me or texting better than me for direct marketing, and something's not working for my cold calling, I can go straight to them and just call them right away and say, hey, like I'm struggling with this, like I don't know what's going wrong, and I can seek help. That's what I do now. But for a while I just stopped and I wouldn't move forward, and that was a big flaw of mine. So I'm really happy that I'm kind of outgrowing that. But that was my beginning stages, and I think everyone goes through that.
So you would say that pushing it forward is better than staying stagnant?
100%. Yeah.
You. And when you sought out help, did you use other social media platforms, or was it just all your coaching or people that you knew already?
I think at the beginning it was just people who I knew of, because I didn't join coaching until this past year. So at the beginning it was just like, if I didn't know how to do something, I maybe had run into other investors and I would just ask them, like if they had expertise or I thought they had expertise, I would ask them. And if they didn't know, they likely would know someone else. So it was just like networking, the people that I've met. And honestly, if you don't know anyone and you're just starting out, I highly encourage you to start networking with people, because once you start networking with people, that's when you can feel comfortable about reaching out for help when you run into specific problems. And I'm not talking about reaching out to like, hey, can I pick your brain? But like reaching out when you run into a specific problem because you're taking action. I think that's the best way to really network at the beginning stages, because they know that you're taking action.
Does it ever feel like competition though, when you start networking with people who are in the same level as you, kind of in the same market? Or for you, or I guess for everyone, it's kind of different. For me, when I first started out, I kind of felt like that I'm very competitive. So I felt like it was like a competition with everyone that I had met that was still in the same level, that was still like where I was at coming up. For you, I was wondering, did you ever feel that way? Like, did you ever feel like, oh, I need to do more since this person did more, or that?
At the beginning, yeah. At the beginning, it's very easy to compare and to think everything's competition, even if you're in the same market, because like, especially when you're in the same market. Because when you're in the same market and you ask someone for help that's a competitor, it feels like, why would they want to help me? Or like, if they ask you for help, like, why would I want to help you? Well, what I've realized over time is that collaboration wins over competition every time. Like, you'll realize that there are so many deals out there, and there's so much business out there for everyone. And I'd much rather split something with someone else to bring someone else up too, than like only one person get it or neither of us get it.
Yeah,
and so that's kind of my perspective. But at the beginning, I had that fear.
Yeah. What's your biggest way to pull in private money, or even hard money, or just money in general?
Yeah. Biggest way for me is social media. As you know, and as you know right there, I post a lot. on social media.
A lot.
And yeah, you know it because you follow me, but since I post so much about real estate investing and wholesaling and what I do, like it starts to help me build trust with my actual viewers. And so when I do need private money, maybe I get a deal locked up, I can very easily just make a story or a post on my Instagram saying, hey, I need $100,000 for this deal. If you're interested, DM me the word lend. And people DM me, and it's only easy now, but at the beginning, it was hard because like I had no track record really. And if there's no track record and there's no trust built from either social media or for someone knowing you, then it's really hard to raise private money. Like you have to instill confidence in other people for yourself. And really the only way to do that is to be confident yourself and to establish yourself as some type of authority, whether it's social media or whether it's something else. So social media brings all my private money, thankfully.
Gotcha. If you didn't have social media, would you saw a different way to get private money? Or like, would you go to your friends and family, or would you create another platform that would generate more of a steady way to pull in that private money?
Yeah, if I didn't have social media and social media was not a thing, like it didn't exist, I probably would just be going heavy at networking. Because networking is huge too with private money. You meet someone, like the last mastermind I attended, I told people, hey, I'm looking for private money. And then after talking to a lot of people for, good amounts of time, a few people were like, hey, like I've talked to you a good amount, like I want to lend with you. I'm like, whoa, like I was no social media involved, just one face-to-face.
Yeah.
And that's a good way. And then also like, if you have the expertise, take opportunity to speak in front of people, like at events or anything like that if you can, because that helps yourself establish yourself as an authority, and it's helped me too.
What if you're scared to ask people for money? Like it's just not in you to walk up to someone and be like, hey, can you lend me $100,000 to buy this house? What if you're just not that type of person to ask somebody for something? Is there a way around it, or do you just have to kind of do it and ask somebody for money just to get yourself there?
I think there's always ways around it. I mean, you could always use your own money or someone like some other loans to get yourself comfortable with the process, like knowing that you will succeed in making money. Because I think the fear, it stems from like not knowing if you're actually going to profit or not. Because if you, like for me, if I'm asking someone for money, I know in my head that I'm making money. Like I'm making good money on this deal and I have money to lend them interest or give them interest back. But if you're new and you don't know what you're doing yet, if you ask for money and you're scared, it's likely because you're not positive if you can give them a good return on their money. I think it's just to deal with it and get over it, because everyone's scared. Like I'm scared when I do bigger deals, or like everyone has a threshold where they're fearful, and you have to find a way to push through, or find yourself a money partner who can like raise money really well and isn't afraid of that, because it also comes with like personality types.
Yeah, and I know fear is like something that you generally wouldn't use. So as a beginner and a rookie, everything's kind of fearful, everything from buying your first property to running the numbers. How do you become more confident in knowing that your numbers are correct, knowing that the deal's a deal, and knowing that you're not gonna buy a house or flip a house and then end up with less money and no profit?
Right. I mean, I think that the very first one, if you don't have someone experienced by your side kind of helping you and guiding you, you won't know. Like it's going to be completely unknown. It's going to be terrifying. Even if your numbers say you're going to make money and you're going to make like $30,000 profit, it might not be the case. It likely won't. And so once you do the first deal, then you kind of become more confident because you're like, hey, I did this, I've succeeded. It just really comes with repetition. Like maybe you don't know the numbers fully. You have to analyze a lot of deals to feel comfortable with it. That's how you can kind of counteract fear, is get the reps in. If you do have someone by your side, they're kind of guiding you, that helps alleviate a lot of the fear too, because you can kind of rely on them when times get tough and you're like, hey, I don't know what to do right now. But at the beginning, man, it's scary at the beginning. And like for me, even my first deal, I did have a lot of confidence going into it, but it was only because I practiced a lot with the numbers. Actually, my first deals were pretty accurate with my numbers and the actual profit. With the first deals, I knew my numbers really, really well because I analyzed hundreds of deals by the time I got my first deal. And maybe that was too much, but I wanted to feel comfortable with it, knowing the numbers. But once I knew them, I was confident going into that deal. Even if I lost money, I'm like, no, I'm fully confident because I know these numbers. So I think it comes to a lot of repetition.
Have you ever put in earnest money on a house and lost your earnest money? Because that's one of my biggest fears, not having a lot of cash capital, is getting a deal under contract, putting the earnest, and then finding out later on like things weren't as I expected and I'm gonna have to withdraw from this deal.
Right. So far I have not had to lose earnest money.
Is that due to you finding all good deals and you're just a deal filter, or is that just because it just worked out always?
No, I've had to back out of deals too, but in those situations, I made sure I had a due diligence phase or period for myself. And if you don't know, if you're watching the video, a due diligence period is essentially a time for you as the investor to do your investigations on a property. So maybe you have like 10 days to inspect the property to make sure it's a property that you want to buy. But I always made sure I had a due diligence phase so that I could look at these properties. And when I did, I made sure to back out in time within that period. So far, I've never, like if I had a 10-day due diligence period, I never backed out on day 11 or 12. It's always been within that range.
When calling agents, how do you know if they're investor friendly or if they're just like residential friendly?
Okay. It's hard to tell at first. I mean, some like things that you can look out for if you ever reach out to an agent and you're like, hey, what do you specialize in? And they say, oh, I do everything. I'm like, I don't think you do. Like that gives me the impression that like there's no one thing that they're good at. So maybe they're okay at like all the rest. But if an agent straight up says like, hey, like before you even say you're an investor or something like that, you just say, hey, I'm a buyer. I usually introduce myself as a buyer, not as an investor. And when I say that, I'm like, hey, like what do you usually do? Like what do you do for real estate agent stuff? Like do you focus with investors or listings or like I kind of ask that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And they'll tell me, I'm like, okay, like the ones that say, hey, no, I deal mainly with investors. I'm like, oh, there is.
Yeah.
Like it's mainly investors. And so they'll tell you, but I try not to tell them what I'm looking for first.
You have like a trial phase when you use new realtors and stuff to see if they actually bring the deals that you sought out for, or if they can actually be beneficial to you, because some investor real estate agents, they just bring everything to you from like low end to high end. It's a mixture of both, but it's like some of us want a specific house built, type of style for our flips. And how do you filter those type of things out?
Yeah, so surprisingly, I haven't had that issue because I'm pretty clear with my expectations of what I want for these agents. So I'll tell them like, here's my specific criteria in Fresno, California, these single family homes under this % market value. This is what I'm looking for. And usually they'll send me like the right stuff. Even if it's a little bit off, I'm like, okay, like you're on the right track. But there's never really a trial period because if they bring a deal, they bring a deal. If they don't bring a deal, it's no big deal.
Yeah. Do you make sure to contact them every week, or is it like they contact you?
I use Podio to like track my relationship. So kind of like exactly how you track leads for like cold calling leads, seller leads, stuff like that. I have it for relationships too. So like I have a database of people. I'm supposed to follow up with them every single month. Sometimes it like extends every 2 months, every 3. Consistently, I'm checking up with them to see like, hey, how are things going? Come up across anything? How can it help you? And I'm always just trying to provide value to people. And if you do that, like it's more likely than not, they're gonna think of you when they come across a deal. Because you're telling them like, hey, I'm looking for this and I'm helping you at the same time.
Is there a number of agents that you would say is a good number to have, or is there an unlimited number to the amount of agents you could have?
The more the better, because what you'll find is like you might collect a database of 300 agents and maybe five will give you deals.
Yeah.
And so it's like you just have to reach out to so many in order to find the few that will work.
Yeah, definitely. For hard money loan, so if you can't get approved, like for instance, I personally am not able to get approved for a hard money loan. I don't have 3 lines of credit. I just don't qualify for a loan. How would you go about getting hard money loans if you weren't able to be qualified for them? For me, it's like a credit thing. Like I have good credit, but I don't have 3 lines of credit open, so they won't allow me to open a hard money loan. But
interesting.
Yeah, so I was just wondering, if you ran into that situation, how would you go about trying to get a hard money loan so that you could actually buy a fix and flip?
I think you need to talk to different hard money lenders. I think every hard money lender is different and they have different criteria. And you're from Denver, for those of you watching. And have you talked to like Denver?
Yeah, so I used Lending Home, and I used Lending Home. I used all my lenders back in Colorado, and all of I'm not qualified, which is it's a tough situation, but it also puts me in the situation to build myself so that I am qualified to do this later on. But the biggest problem was I could never buy a home if I couldn't get the hard money loan.
Interesting.
So I was just wondering how would you go about that?
For me, so whenever I reach out to hard money lenders, some are like more strict and they want a little bit more information on yourself and your personal finances. But one I like is like they just check my credit. Like that was it. And I don't even know if they checked if I had multiple lines. I think they just looked at the score and said, okay, he has a decent score. And once they did that, they're like, no, you're good to go, like up to this price. And then I even told them like, hey, like I'll probably be using private money too, like for the down payment and stuff like that. And they told me like how it how they'd want it set up like that.
Mhm.
I think you got to reach out to a lot more hard money lenders just to see what's really out there, because hard money lenders for the most part don't care that much about your personal finances. Maybe if you have horrible credit, they're going to care.
Yeah.
But if you have like decent credit, for the most part, they'll just care about the deal. Because for anyone starting, like I started hard money when I didn't have that much money in the bank. I was like, oh, I don't even have enough for the down payment.
Yeah,
But I'm like-
that's me right now.
Yeah, but I was like, oh, let me just like see if they'll approve me. I'm like, oh, I got approved. Like they didn't really care about the bank statements. They just wanted to see if I have decent credit. If I didn't have enough money, I just tell them, hey, like I'm planning to use private money for the down payment and for stuff like that.
So in that situation, when you didn't have enough for your down payment
Mhm.
or for your interest rate, where did you scrap up the extra change to pay that interest rate while you were doing your project? Because obviously you had a project going, you know, your money's already invested in it, but then you ran a little short. Where do you go to go and find that extra like $4 to $5 grand to help you finish?
Right. That just came from like the private money lenders that I found through social media.
Did
Luckily,
you come back to them and ask them again for more money, or was it they kind of just like they gave it to you because they trusted you?
though they gave it. If they're hesitant about it, I want you to be fully comfortable with lending me money. If you're not, it's okay.
Gotcha.
Because I would never want someone to be fearful of like having their money with me. Like anyone who has their money with me, they're fully confident they're going to get paid back.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
So it's all about just that trust with
Yeah.
you and your private money.
100%. And it's really, it's like, again, it goes back to the networking. The more people you know, especially in this business, I guarantee you if you have an actual deal and you go to a trusted investor, they're going to find a way to help you out. They're going to find a way to either give you the money to the deal or partner with you to split the profit or something, or maybe connect you with the right person.
Mm.
But if you have an actual deal, like if you were to come to me and said, hey, I have a deal, we're going to make $100,000 on this, but I have no money, I'm like, I will find the money for you. Like, it's almost like the deal is the most important thing when it comes to real estate investing. If you don't have one, there's nothing really to talk about.
Hear that, guys? Find a deal.
Yep.
Find a deal.
Exactly.
When you feel sick or you get sick, let's say you're sick for longer than a week,
Yeah.
does your work stop or do you continue to try to work? Because, you know, in our field, it's like there's not really a time that you can be off. Like you're kind of always on the clock,
Right.
depending on what it is. So if, like, say you're sick or someone just passed and you just wanted some time to yourself, would you stop everything and cut like all the contact off, or would you keep that line of contact open with everyone?
That's actually happened to me a couple times last year, and like I was seriously sick before. Like I had COVID a couple times, and I was like bedridden. And when that time happened, I remember I got sick. I was feeling horrible, and I still made like maybe a couple texts out to a couple people on my team. I was like, hey, like I'm gonna be out. Like I'm sick. I need help. Can you take over this part for just like temporarily? And like I didn't even teach them how like really that much. They kind of knew. But I'm like, I need help. And the only thing that suffered at that time was my content, because I didn't have my systems in place to have the content, the YouTube videos and the Instagram posts still coming out, because I posted all that myself. And so that stuff did suffer, but the communication, like what needed to be done as far as managing the current projects, it was still rolling because I had a project manager in place, or maybe an outside sales agent to do like the communicating stuff.
Mhm.
You'll figure out as you go, probably when you get sick or when you have something bad happen. Because when that first happened and I didn't have content, I was like out for 3 weeks because that COVID sucked.
Yeah.
But
Definitely.
when I had not posted that content for 3 weeks, I was so like upset with myself because I made a goal of being super consistent with it. And after that happened, I like really thought hard about what kind of system I wanted to make so that never happens again. And now I have it set to where like if I'm out for a month, like the content just keeps rolling. At first, you don't know what you need to do, I think, until you have to like be sick or you have something that you have to tend to.
Got you. When you first started out, is there a certain route you would take though, like from wholesaling to flipping to reverse to social
Oh.
media? Which one would you say was the most beneficial at the start, or would have been the most beneficial now if you would have started it?
If I were to go back, I would have started social media way sooner. Social media has been my biggest difference maker as far as income, and like everything else has become easier because of social media. I've raised private money, I've gotten deals, gotten affiliates, like stuff like that. And so if I were to go back, I would have definitely started social media and just documenting my journey from the start. And then as far as the route I went, I think I was happy with my route. Again, I wouldn't have known what to do at that time, but I started with the MLS and I'm still on the MLS.
Yeah, me too.
So I'm happy with that.
Yeah, MLS is great. I love the MLS.
Yeah.
You know, knowledge isn't free always.
Yeah.
Would you say paying for knowledge would be beneficial or could be beneficial? Because I know everything you can find is online. You have Safari, I have
Right.
Safari. We all can search
Right.
things up. Sometimes paying for coaching or paying for that would help in a sense, but do you think that paying for coaching and paying for for some help would be beneficial for people?
I really think that it depends on the coach.
Yeah.
Because if you have a coach that doesn't actually care about you and your success, it's going to be a waste of money. If you have a good coach who actually is there for you and you can come to, I think it's going to be a huge benefit, and I would encourage you to pay for that stuff. But like if you were dead broke, like $0 in the bank, you can absolutely figure this out for free, like online and things like that. And just kind of like the school of hard knocks, kind of like failing on your own.
Yeah.
And I've had a lot of that too. Just like that's how you learn. It does take longer, and you have to kind of weigh the pros and cons of like, hey, like, can I pay for this and succeed faster, or the potential to succeed faster, or am I okay? Do I have the time to wait it out and learn on my own? So everyone has to weigh that. But personally, at first, I wasn't a huge fan of coaching until I got it, and I was like, okay, this is pretty helpful.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. See, I never believed that paying for coaching was going to be beneficial.
Yeah.
Until I did it, and then I realized I was like, oh, there's so many benefits
Yeah.
to doing this. That's why I paid so much money for it, because it does cost a lot of money to pay for some of these coaches. So
Right.
it's always like, and there's tons of them. You know, you never know which one's actually legit or not.
Right.
So it's a tough situation, and a lot of people ask me about it all the time. Like, hey, like who should I choose? Like this guy or this guy? And I honestly have no clue.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
You can't give advice. Thank you so much, man, for joining, and I'm happy that you actually came on, because your perspective is what my viewer perspective is.
Yeah.
And so you asked awesome questions. If you enjoyed Steven on this video right here, make sure to give him a follow on Instagram. What is your Instagram?
It's Steven, STEVA or EAN 1523.
All right, and it's right there for you. And I'll put in the link in the description too. And also, if you want help to grow your real estate business, whether you're brand new or if you already got deals under your belt, DM me the word coach on Instagram at Justin You're Wrong. Thank you guys for watching. See you the next one. Cool.